Hello, my name is Ray Hughes, and I'm the interviewer for the Veterans History Project conducted by the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C., and locally administered by the Cincinnati-Hamilton County Public Library. And the manager at that department is Brian Powers, who is our cameraman today. Today's date is the 12th of July, 2019. And this interview is being conducted at the Kenwood in Cincinnati, Ohio. And today we have the honor and privilege of interviewing a World War II veteran, William G. Watkins, Jr. And Mr. Watkins, Bill, it's a pleasure to meet you, sir.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
And thank you for this interview.
Thank you for this opportunity.
If we would, Bill, your date of birth and where you were living when you were born.
I was born in Middletown, Ohio, December the 1st, 1922.
And so 1922 makes you...
It's the Middletown Hospital.
Yes.
I'm 96 years old.
96.
Yeah.
And where were you living? Do you remember the street address you were living at when you were born?
No, not the street address. No, I don't.
And your mother and father's name?
William E. Watkins and Helen Palmer. And they were divorced shortly after I was born. So.
And what did your dad do for a living, Bill?
I don't know. My father was just a young man, and I don't know what. I think he was a milkman. I'm not sure.
I see.
This was just two kids, either fortunately or unfortunately.
And did you have a brother or sister?
No, only child.
I see. And well, who raised you?
Well, I spent most of my time with my grandparents. I lived part-time with my mother and stepfather, but most of my young adult life was growing up and with my grandparents and an aunt and an uncle.
What were your grandparents' names, Bill?
My grandparents was L.T. and Mary Palmer in Middletown. My grandfather was in the real estate business in Middletown for many, many years.
What schools did you go to? Grade schools?
Went to Central School. Miss Lockmeyer was my first grade teacher. And I moved around somewhat with my mother and stepfather, and as a consequence went to a few different schools. And finally I got settled about the 9th grade and went to Roosevelt Junior High in Middletown, and then finished out high school at Middletown High. Ended up graduating in the class of 1940. And I suspect that I'm probably the only living members of the class of 1940 now. I'm not aware or haven't heard from anybody recently, so.
When you were
that's about it.
When you were growing up, did you have any odd jobs or anything like that you did?
Well, cut grass, about like all the kids did. And that was about, I did, at one time I sold the Cleveland Citizen newspaper on the street corner when I lived with my mother and stepfather. And other than that, and cutting grass and I guess chores for the neighbors, that's all I did in that regard.
Did you have an automobile when you were younger?
No, I got my first car after I was out of high school. My friend had a 1928 Ford convertible with no top, all painted up with bright colors and with the name Petunia on it. And I rode with him, bummed around with him for a while and got acquainted with the car, and he finally decided to sell it. And he sold it to me for $30. And a little bit later, I had occasion, I was ready to sell it, and I sold it to a car dealer who was a friend of mine for $10. And the day I sold it, something happened and the car burned up. That was the end of Petunia. That was my first automobile.
So this is 1940, and you graduated from high school.
Yeah.
What did you do after graduating from school?
Went to work at Armco as a mail boy, and worked my way into a timekeeper. And that's where I was before I went in the service.
You remember what you made a week there while you were working there?
No, I don't remember dollars and cents, but it was enough to keep a young fella who was interested in the girls. It was enough to keep him in date money and maybe save a little bit. But
yeah, Armco Steel was the biggest employer there in that area.
oh yeah, at that time.
Yeah.
Armco, most everybody went to work at Armco after they got out of school.
So you graduated, you were 18 years old. Is that correct? 1940.
1940, yeah.
June of 40.
Yeah.
Well, you could have still been 17. You would have been 18 in December the 1st.
Well, it was December.
Yeah.
December. I don't remember.
So, how long did you work there before you decided?
Before I decided to do something?
Mm-hmm.
It was, gosh, I don't know, a couple of years or so, or anyway, while. And as I say, what caused myself to thinking was the fact that two of my friends were killed, and I thought, well, I guess it's my turn to do something.
Do you recall where you were on December the 7th, 1941?
Yeah, I do. I was with a friend, and we were driving. I was riding with him. We were just out, I guess, cruising, and we were riding down Central Avenue in Middletown, and we got to work 1941, and it was quite a revelation.
Did you hear about it on the radio, or
heard it on the car? Yeah,
on the car radio?
On the car radio. I didn't know what to think.
Did you know where Pearl Harbor was at that time?
Knew where Pearl Harbor was, yes. At that time, they taught geography in school,
right?
Which apparently they do not do now. Taught world history and geography, and I think it's a damn shame that the children these days are not being exposed to those situations.
Yeah. Talking about your early life, though, did you belong to any particular church?
No, I did not. My maternal grandparents belonged to one church, and my paternal grandmother belonged to another, and I guess not frequently, but occasionally would go to church with either or both of those places. And I was not particularly religious. In fact, I'm an agnostic. And,
well, after Pearl Harbor, what did you decide to do? I know a lot of guys decided to join the service. What were your thoughts at that time?
I thought, I guess I'll get out and do something for my country. Everybody else is doing it. And we need as much support as they do. And I'm just one individual, so at least I'll do what I can.
So, where did you go to first join up?
Please?
How did you come about to join the service then? I think you were told this before.
Yeah, as I say, when these two friends of mine were killed, yeah, they were just inducted into the Army that day. And it really, when I lost them, and thinking about the induction, I thought, well, it's about time I start doing some serious thinking and decide what I want to do to go in. And that's where I started, as I say, with the...
Where'd you go to first to join?
Went first to the Air Force because I'd either read or heard they had a pilot training program. And I thought, well, I might like to be a pilot. So when I went there, they said no. They didn't need me. They had enough people. So what do I do next? Again, I thought, well, I'll go in the Merchant Marines and I'll still be out at sea and doing what I'm supposed to be doing and maybe make a little bit more money in the Merchant Marine than I would in the service. So I tried that. And
you recall when you joined the Merchant Marines or went down and signed the papers?
with the what?
When you joined the Merchant Marines?
When?
Yes.
Not exactly. I don't have a lot of date. I don't keep a lot of dates in my head. And,
where did they send you to basic training at?
I went to Sheepshead Bay for boot camp, and went through the training there. And it was cold, and it was.
That's in New York, isn't it?
Yeah, New York, Brooklyn, and it was cold. It was winter time, and it was cold. And when we went out in the boats and rode around a little bit, it was colder. It was real cold. And when we finished, as I mentioned earlier, the graduates from this boot camp, instead of going out to sea and having a job, they had stacked up at the St. George Hotel in Brooklyn. And at that time, I thought, what the hell? I want to get into this thing, and I'm not going to be sitting around a damn hotel waiting to be called up. What do I do? So I went home. And when I went home, I went to the Navy, and I said, I'm finished boot camp in Merchant Marine. Well, we don't regard that as anything. We don't really need you right now. So I said, well, what am I supposed to do? He said, well, they go back to work. Okay. So I went back to work. And a short time later, or not too long later, I got a call from the Navy, report to Great Lakes Naval Training Station. So I reported to Great Lakes and had 8 more weeks of boot camp. Went through the Navy boot camp.
Well, that's February of 1943, isn't it?
I don't know, but it was
Cold, wasn't it?
it was winter then also when we finished, because I went to, from the Great Lakes, I went to diesel school down at Navy Pier. And Navy Pier was just a big open nothing, and the wind from the lake just went sweeping through there, and it was colder than you can believe up there. And I had, I don't know how long was it, 8 weeks, I think, 8 or 9 weeks at the diesel school. And from there, went to Solomons, Maryland, if I recall. And from Solomons, went from there to Evansville, and was one of the crew being formed for LST 495, which is being manufactured at Evansville. And from then it's all down the river.
What was Solomon's, Maryland, though?
Well, we had about if I remember correctly, had about a week's training on an LST in Chesapeake Bay, if I remember correctly. And that was about it.
I see.
And
you had been trained to be what? In the
a diesel mechanic. Yeah.
And so after the Solomons, you went down to Evansville, and that's where they actually built the LST 495?
Yeah.
What do they call the first crew that is assigned to a ship? And there's something...
I don't know.
There's some kind of a term.
A bunch of kids from...
But you were part of the...
school, from different trade schools, getting together to run a ship. We didn't... I don't think any of us had any great amount of experience, but we managed to put together, to get the crew together and get the damn ship running. So,
do you recall about how many men it took on that crew?
No, I don't remember initially.
Well, fortunately, you
I think
provided us with a
about
roster.
65 or something like that, maybe more than that.
Do you recall the commanding officer on the...
Yeah, his name was MacDonald, Matt. He had been a tugboat captain, I understand, in the New York Harbor. And the rest of the officers were the 90-day wonders. So if I remember, our original engineering officer was a Navy guy, old Navy. But other than that, was strictly green hands like myself.
How many guys worked down as diesel mechanics on board the ship?
How many what?
How many diesel mechanics did you have on board the ship?
Oh, God.
Besides yourself?
I don't really know the count.
5 or 6 or?
Yeah, 10 maybe. 8, somewhere along in there.
On the notice on your separation papers here, it says after you got on board the LST 495, where did you go from there?
After then?
After you were...
Oh, I was separated up at Treasure Island in San Francisco.
No.
The ship was, that's where the ship went. Is that what you're asking?
No. Where were you sent next after getting on board the LST? Where was your first duty assignments? Geography.
What?
Your first duty assignments, geography.
Duty assignment?
Yeah, where did they send the ship next? From Evansville, Indiana.
Well, we went down to Ohio and down the Mississippi and ended up at New Orleans and had some work done on the ship. And we also then went over to Mobile and had some more work done on the ship. And took some practice runs in the Gulf, and we were also did some gunnery target in the Gulf there. And we were down in that area for, oh God, I don't know, a couple of weeks or so, remember. And after everything was supposed ship-shape and everything put together, we went up and the ship was degaussed up around Baton Rouge somewhere, I think it was. And then back to New Orleans, and from there we went up to Norfolk.
Norfolk?
Yeah, we put it at Norfolk. And from there we went on up and ended up in Boston. And had some work done up in Boston too as well on the ship. And this is prior to leaving, and a little bit, somewhat later. We were up in Boston for quite some time with having work done on the ship. And from there we went to Davisville, Rhode Island, and loaded up and joined a convoy at Halifax, in the bay at Halifax, before we went to Europe. And went to Europe in the convoy.
Did you have any trouble in the convoy while going across the Atlantic?
No, I had my trouble in Davisville. The night before we were to leave to go to up to Canada, there were a couple of us that were looking for a chicken dinner before we left. And we were running to catch a taxi, and I fell on my shoulder. Slipped on the ice and fell on my shoulder. And went to the Naval Dispensary in Davisville. And it was at night, and the OD was in bed. And so my couple of buddies and me, and we went in and told you, the corpsman went in and told the OD that about here's a guy with a shoulder problem, and he said, send him in. So he didn't get out of bed, he just sat up in bed and swung his legs over the side and said, come over here. And I went over there, and he put one foot by my neck and one foot by my chest and took my arm and gave a yank and told the corpsman, sew him up. And with that, he pulled his feet up and swung back, went to bed. And I went with the corpsman and got taped up like this.
Oh my goodness.
And this didn't last but a day. I finally took my knife and cut the damn thing loose so I could work my arm and whatever. And off we went to Nova Scotia, or wherever.
Halifax Bay?
Halifax, to join the convoy. And from there, I guess we took, I don't know, a day or so, whatever, before we left, and went across to, our first stop was Milford Haven, Wales. In our ballast tanks, instead of water as we had, we took fuel as a consequence, and unloaded our fuel over in Wales there, and then went on around to, I guess it was Plymouth or so.
Mm-hmm.
And we were there until Normandy. We did have a group of LSTs that went out one night under trying to night maneuvers, and some German E-boats got in, and we lost a couple of LSTs that night while we were during training.
Was that Operation Tiger?
I forget.
That's
I think I've got somewhere in the file I've got.
Was that Slapton Sands?
Please?
A place called Slapton Sands. That's where a couple E-boats, when the 4th Division was practicing on a beach that looked like Utah.
No, this was night maneuvers out in
the channel.
Channel there.
Yeah.
And the E-boats got in, and I think we lost 2 LSTs that night. Went down. It was a well-kept, or supposedly a well-kept secret.
Yes.
For quite some time. And we were, I don't know, over there until the invasion. We went to Omaha Beach. We laid out the day. Took, I think, a day and a half or 2 days to get the trip over, and we laid out for all day, and the battleships and the cruisers were behind us, lobbing shells against the armaments up on top of the hill over there, and we had to wait until the beach was cleared before we could go in, and we finally went in about 6:30 in the evening, and was able to.
Was that on day 1?
Yeah. We were able to unload our cargo. We had trucks and tanks, and we still had we had a few crew, but not too many, and they went out in small boats in the morning before, so we didn't have too many people hardly to unload. And then as soon as we got unloaded, they set up, the medics moved in and on the tank deck and set up the tables and medical equipment that they need to take care of the wounded. And they started bringing wounded in. And I had an occasion, got out of the engine room for some reason or another, and I had occasion to witness a couple of these guys that were wounded, and it stuck to me to this day. One of the guys had a lower part of his jaw shot off, and another one was just a young kid, had just been in the Army a short time, had just come overseas, and just before he had come overseas, he had gotten married, and this kid stepped on a landmine, and those two I saw other wounded, but those two incidents really got home to me, and pretty, when you see it firsthand, war is really hell. It's so sad that we lost so many good people. I'm sorry to get a little bit emotional about
No,
it, but
no.
I say once you don't really fully appreciate the situation until you've seen it. And I should have stayed in the engine room, I guess, but I don't know. This is one of the reasons I never paid a lot of attention to what we were doing or where we were. I was in the engine room most of the time.
Doing your job.
And I'm doing my job, and all I got was a signal from the bridge, what kind of speed they wanted to go to, and so forth. And so it sometimes felt like the mushroom. Keep me in the dark.
Yes, okay. I get it now. Yeah, I get it now. Yeah, very good. How long did your ship stay there off of Omaha?
Just at Omaha, we stayed until we loaded up with wounded and went back to England. And if memory serves me right, I think we made 9 trips back and forth. At one point in time, we had 908 German prisoners, and these prisoners thought they were going to the U.S., and they were somewhat disappointed when they found they were just going to England, but nevertheless, they were damn glad to be out of the fray and had at least some feeling of safety.
Yeah.
Even though they were prisoners, they felt safe. One of the crew members, Dick Eldridge, good friend, was a water tender, and Dick's parents had come from Germany. And Dick grew up in a German household and knew how to spell, or knew a bit of German, and he related some of the comments that the prisoners had made. And it was able to, as he circulated through the prisoners, was able to enjoy hearing what they had to say, and they were all very pleased to be back off the lines and go into some place that they felt was a little bit safer.
Mm-hmm. On those roughly 9 trips that you made back to Omaha, were they all over to Omaha Beach, or did you go to Utah or anything?
No, I think most, if memory serves me right, I don't really know for sure, but I think they were all to Omaha.
And did you continue bringing more wounded back?
Did we what?
Did you continue picking up more wounded each time you went back?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we don't think about the wounded, do we?
And we brought in equipment and so forth, but we were able to unload on the beach because it wasn't, we could load some of it in the water, but most of it had to be on the beach. And the tides had to be right, and for us to go in, we have a bow anchor and a stern anchor, and the bow anchor was dropped somewhere out. I don't know how far, because I'm not one of the deck apes. It dropped so far out, and then we go in with the tide, and we get unload and whatever. And then normally we'd have to wait until another tide, or depending on how quickly we could get unloaded. And then we used the bow or the stern anchor to help pull us off the beach, in addition to reversing the engines. So it was able to accomplish that with some degree of difficulty, but most often it went relatively smooth.
Did you have much liberty while you were in England to go into town?
Yeah, often, yeah, a little bit. Yeah, we go in. And in fact, I got tried to bring a bottle of wine aboard, and I got captain's mast for that. I got caught. So it was, well, a limited, we had a limited amount.
What town were you going in over there? What city did you go into over there, or town?
I think it was Plymouth, mostly.
I see.
There was some other, again, I'm down in the engine room. What the hell is going on?
Okay.
Nobody tells us.
While you were over there in England, did they have any entertainment or like that? Did you go to the USO dances or anything like that?
Nah, I don't think so. Didn't go to any USO places. Probably went to the local pub. That's about it.
Were there a lot of Navy guys there? Because when you think of England, you know, you think of the Army and the Air Force.
There were quite a few Navy guys, but I don't know how many LSTs there were operating.
After England, did you guys ship out to somewhere else? I see you say here next you went to France.
Yeah, we were at the invasion.
Oh, yeah.
Invasion of southern France. And about the only incident we had, if I remember correctly, I think we had a one-man submarine. Came about there.
When you say southern France, are you talking about down in Marseille?
I'm talking, Marseille, down in that area.
Yeah.
The
Operation Dragoon.
Well, it would be the place where everybody likes to go, where we made the invasion.
Yes.
And speaking of Marseille, our ship was the first ship into Marseille when they got the harbor opened up. And we pulled in essentially right downtown Marseille. And I, for the first, last and only time I was on shore patrol, was in Marseille.
Uh-huh.
This is off camera. We found out how my buddy and I found out what the MPs were doing, and they found out their route. And the MPs were going into the very houses where the sailors and soldiers shouldn't be.
Right.
And trying picking them up and whatever. we found out what their route was, and we went ahead of them, and we went in and warned everybody, get the hell out. The MPs are just behind us. And when the MPs would come, they'd find us. What are you guys doing here? Well, we're checking them out. It's supposed to, we're on shore patrol, seeing what they're. Well, the next day, my buddy and I went back to these same places, and they were real happy to see us, and we gave us some free drinks and whatever for being so nice in causing us a little commotion as possible. Well, that was our experience there, but we shuttled back and forth between Naples and southern France too, quite a bit. I forget how many trips we made there. And I was running through the ship one time, and I banged my knee. And my knee got all swollen up there when we were in Naples. And I went to the naval dispensary with a swollen knee, and it hurt like hell. And, oh, you got something the matter with your knee. Well, we got what you're going to have to do with that is put some cold compresses or warm compresses, whatever it was, on your knee. But you got to stay off your feet. You can't do it. But the towels and the water and everything are over there. But stay off your feet. Soak your knee. Well, I think I missed one trip of the shuttles that we're making for my stay in there, and was able to get back on the ship again. That's man.
As you're going back and forth between Marseille and Naples,
Well,
are you carrying trucks and tanks?
Yeah, we were shuttling equipment and so forth, trucks and tanks and or whatever else needed to be carried, we were carrying. Not just because essentially the LST, just like the truck line for the Navy. Hauling everything. We even had out in the Philippines, we had a light airplane on board one time. Why, I don't know or remember, but we did for a few days. So.
And an LST, does it have different decks? You got a lower deck or a top deck?
Yeah, we've got a tank deck. It's a great open space. The whole thing is just a great big empty space for the trucks and the tanks. We also have an elevator so that we're able to take it in on the tank deck and then put it up on topside for when we carried stuff up there, trucks up there and whatever, and they were tied down pretty good and whatever. But and then again after D-Day, in the tank deck, they cleared all the equipment out and set up the medical equipment,
right.
Whatever, and along the bulkheads on the sides of the ship, we had a bunch of arms about this long for stretchers that would essentially hang on the stretchers there. And one thing happened when the tank deck was empty, and the laundryman was hanging out the laundry on these arms.
Right.
and I was running across the tank deck. Something was, for some reason, I forget why I was running, and I was not aware that a mattress cover was hanging on one of these things. And as I ran directly into it, and I hit myself right here, and it knocked me on my ass. And I think I might have a little scar yet, and I've got a bruise or bump on my head from it. And it was very, very painful, and it's a wonder that I didn't kill myself.
Mm-hmm.
But I was fortunate.
Did you get into Naples, the city?
Yeah, oh yeah.
That was pretty well bombed out, wasn't it?
No, the city was running pretty well. I had a situation in Naples. I was out on Liberty one night by myself, and I was just kind of wandering around, and I found a little place where there was a storefront on the front, and the people lived in the back of the building. And I had not had a fresh egg for a long, long time. Been eating that damn powdered egg crap. And talking to the people that had this little store, and they lived in the back, I had them cook me a dozen eggs.
A dozen, huh?
And yeah, they were nice enough to do it. They sold me the eggs and then went in the back and fried my eggs. And I sat there in their little store and I ate a dozen eggs. First fresh eggs I'd had for I don't know how long, and it was well worth it. I was stuffed to the gills. Eggs running out my ears, I think. But it was something oh God, that was great though.
So,
It was
any other experiences there in Italy or in France you want to share with us?
not that I can think of.
Well, from Italy, did you stop at Corsica also? In Algeria?
Yeah, I guess we did, yeah. Billy showed you, he's got a list of the places we stopped. And again, I was in the engine room. I didn't know where we were going. I just know how we got there.
Yeah. Well, when you were
Corsica.
Did you go ashore?
Yeah, wait a minute. There's some place. I'm trying to think. I went ashore at some. Seems to me I went ashore on some island. What's on Corsica? I went ashore on some island over there for some reason, and it was, I don't know, that escapes me.
Did you go ashore at Tunisia?
In Tunisia, I went ashore at Oran.
Right.
I had a friend who's in the Merchant Marine, and I knew what ship he was on. And when we went to Oran there, the ship that I knew I was identifying him with was in port there. And I went over to check to see if he was on it, but he had gotten off the last trip. in Oran, I think it was, I had an opportunity where I was able to go ashore, and I didn't do this deliberately, but I found myself in an area that was off limits, like in a Casbah type place. And I didn't realize it, but I was off limits, and they were looking for, of course, the guys that were not supposed to be there. So here I am back in a place that I'm not supposed to be. So how do I get out of here without being seen? Well, it took a little while to I pondered this and looked around and whatever. And here is a streetcar that's packed jammed to the gills with people. So what do? The only sensible thing is I get on the streetcar and I get in the middle of all these people, so I can't be seen. So the streetcar goes skirting across the line. I'm in safe territory. Get off the streetcar. But it was an experience with all these herons, whatever they are, all around you and up against you and whatever. But it was a means to an end.
Yes.
And it served a good purpose.
You're lucky they didn't take your boots.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't lose something. But it was interesting. The area was different and interesting. Had a chance to walk through it and see some of the buildings and houses or whatever they are, whatever. That was my experience there. One other experience that we had, I think, when we were coming into the Mediterranean originally, I think we ended up in Lake Missouri for some reason or another. And here's in Lake Missouri, all these, they call them bum boats. Guys in tiny little boats, and they're looking to buy white goods. Anything white they were interested in buying. But if you're caught selling your floor or your mattress cover or any white things, tough stuff. And there's these guys around the ship hollering up, want to buy all your anything white. White, I don't know, but that was one of the, I guess, my first experience with Africa, seeing how differently people are.
Did you eat any of their food?
Did I eat any of their food?
Yes.
No. Had no occasion to eat any of their food.
So how long did you stay there in the Mediterranean?
Gosh, I don't know, it was after Normandy in southern France. Must have been, I imagine, a couple of months or so.
And
we got doing the shuttling back and forth. And then when we left and where did we go? We came back to the States. And and we ended up in Boston.
Boston?
Yeah, in Boston. When we got leave, and I forget how long the leave was. Then we came back to Boston, and working on the ship again.
While you were on leave there in Boston, did you get a hold of your mother or go home? Or
Oh,
anything?
yeah, I went home. I went to Middletown.
I see.
Went back to Middletown on leave and for, I don't know.
What was your mother's name again?
My mother's name?
Uh-huh.
Helen Palmer.
Helen Palmer. Mm-hmm.
No, I don't think I saw my mother then. Saw my grandparents. I went back to my grandparents.
What were their names?
Palmer, Lilburn, L.T., and Mary Palmer.
I see. So how long did you spend at home on your leave?
Please?
How long did you spend at home on your leave? A week?
I don't remember how long it was. I think it was longer than that. I don't think it was 30 days. But I don't really remember. You'd have to check the records there for that. Maybe it was a 30-day leave. I don't remember.
So you went back to Boston after your leave?
Yeah, we went back to Boston, and I think, and from there we went down to, I think we stopped at Norfolk, or maybe we didn't, forget. But we went to Guantanamo, and stopped at Guantanamo, and then to the canal, over to the canal, and went through the canal, and from there out into the Pacific. And by that time we'd changed, Mac was no longer our skipper, and Ensign Jensen, if you're off camera, a damn potato farmer and from Idaho was a pain in the behind. He got promoted from executive officer to captain, and he was a no good. When we got to the islands in Pacific, I forget what Wake Island, I forget whatever island it was we got to.
Inuit-talk?
Huh?
Inuit-talk?
I don't know, whatever island it was we got to first.
Marshall Island.
Everybody in the island was cut off shorts and no sleeve shirts and whatever. And Ensign Jensen, who was now Captain Jensen, decided that if anybody from the LST-495 was going to shore, they had to wear their whites, which was absolutely ridiculous, taking into consideration the location, the temperature, and whatnot. It was a stupid thing to do, because we had a stupid guy commanding the damn ship. So here we go. Everybody getting. We hadn't been on land for a while, and here's an opportunity, and we ended up the laughing stock of the Pacific Fleet. Here's LFT-495 guys in their whites, and everybody else. It was absolutely ridiculous. The man's mentality was just too great. His ego was too damn great. So anyway, it was Ensign Jensen that ended up as Captain Jensen. But he was our skipper, and we got there and got back, so I guess it was worth something.
It shows that you visited in the Pacific, Inuit-talk and Perry Island, P-A-R-R-Y.
Yeah. wherever.
When you were at Guam and Saipan, was the war still going on there? Were they still fighting?
No, the fighting was over, and we had been up to, oh shoot, what's the name? I have a mental block on the damn place where we made the invasion up there. It's in the Pacific. It's the islands north of the Pacific, of the Philippines. Where was Chris Blair born, Billy?
Or the Okinawa?
Okinawa.
Yeah, Roku Island.
Huh?
The
Okinawa.
Ryukyu Islands, Okinawa.
Okay,
yeah.
I forget. Yeah, we made the invasion at Okinawa.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
That was April the 1st,
Yeah, when
1945, when the first day of the invasion.
we were there. We were not there at the first invasion, first day. We were there while it was still going on. And we apparently, by the time that we were there, we qualified for the star, so we made the invasion. And then we shuttled between Okinawa and the Philippines for a few trips back and forth. The memorable thing about the Pacific was the fact that when we were in the typhoon out there, and we had our bow anchor out and our stern anchor out, and we were running flank speed for, I want to say 48 hours, but I'm not sure it was that long. It was an interminable length of time, and it was absolutely frightening for me, because had we not been able to keep headed into the wind, if we had deviated a bit, we would have capsized. And I could not think of a worse death than being upside down
That's right.
in a capsized vehicle. But again, we got through it, and but we were running flank speed for at least I know it was over 24 hours, and maybe 48. I don't know, but it was an interminable length of time just to keep headed in the wind.
How many trips did you make there to Okinawa?
Oh God, I don't know. I can't tell you. I don't know. Don't remember how many trips we made there. But we worked out of Subic Bay.
In the Philippines?
Yeah, in the Philippines, and hauling stuff, just like the truck lines. Just like the truck lines, we were just hauling stuff.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever go ashore at Okinawa?
I don't know. I don't think I ever did. Well, maybe just off the ship, and that's about it. 'Cause it wasn't safe up there. They were still running kamikazes. So we were still in danger. And I understood that these guys were up in trees and hiding every place, shooting these Japanese.
Was your ship ever attacked while you were at sea?
Were they what?
Was your ship ever attacked while you were at sea by an airplane or by naval?
No, not at sea. I don't recall that we were. If they would have been there, they would have had us, because we're a large, slow target, LST is a large, slow target.
How many guns on an LST would you
I
say?
think we had a 3.5-inch gun, and then a couple of 20 millimeters. When we were practicing our trying our guns when we were down before we left the States, we were down off of Florida. We practiced gunnery. And there was a light airplane towing a target. If I remember correctly, we hit the line carrying the target. I'm not sure, but I think we did. We did that.
The pilot didn't feel any too comfortable.
And I guess it sure scared the hell out of that light airplane pilot. Being shot down by LST
Friendly forces.
495. Oh, God.
Did you get ashore in the Philippines?
Oh, yeah. That's when we were in Subic.
Uh-huh.
In fact, I have had a half-brother, and he was also in the Navy, and he was a diver. And he happened to be at Subic when we were there, and he came aboard ship and I got a chance to see him.
What was his name?
Robert Dean Watkins, my father's son.
Uh-huh.
We shared a father, not a mother. And then I have other children that I shared a mother with on that side as well. My mother had 1, 2, 3, 4. How many? 3 girls, 4 girls, and 1 son. So I had stepchildren, I guess you'd call them, on both sides.
Tell us about the Philippine Islands. Did you get much liberty while you were there at this time?
Only at Subic, and there wasn't Longapo, something was the town there, and went in there, I guess, once or so, but there wasn't really much to do, much to see there. That was about it.
You know, while you were in the Navy there in April of '45, were you aware that President Roosevelt had died?
Yeah, I guess we were notified.
I was just curious about.
Doesn't stick out in my mind.
Where you were at. You would have been around Okinawa, though, because he died April the 12th, if I remember correctly.
I don't remember.
But, could you tell me where you were at? Were you aware of the atomic bomb while you were in the Navy?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You recall when the first one was dropped on August 6th?
Yeah, and I heard about
the second one.
What am I trying to say? The airplane's having a problem trying to find a place to land, something of the sort. Doolittle's crew.
Are you familiar with the Doolittle raid?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
That was in April of '42, though.
Where were you?
I was just,
I don't remember where we were then.
I was just going to ask you where you were when you heard about the atomic bomb.
I don't know. Don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
When it was happening, I guess.
Yeah. What about the surrender of the Japanese? Do you recall where you were when that happened?
Yeah. We were, I think we were at Tokyo Bay. I'm not sure.
They surrendered on August 15th of 45. He might have still been in the Philippines then.
I don't know. Somewhere over there.
Well, after they did surrender, did you remain in the Pacific?
Yeah, we went to Japan, and then it was all clear when we went there. The fighting was all over, and we were in Tokyo Bay for some reason. After we left there, and we were there for a day or tied up over there for a while.
Did you have occasion to go ashore in Japan?
No, I didn't. I don't remember going ashore over there. Again, no, I don't. I hate to say this, but the Japanese had the whorehouses all lined up over there, waiting for the American sailors to come in.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, Captain Jensen probably wouldn't let you off unless you were in your dress whites, though. Huh?
Yeah, I guess. Oh God, I remember hearing that. Oh hell yeah.
But you weren't. You didn't.
I didn't go ashore. Oh, I don't remember going ashore there. Again, I was in the engine room. I didn't know. We didn't know anything going on.
It's probably a good thing you were.
Yeah. Yeah. That was always our excuse. Oh, hell, I was in the engine room.
Well, from Japan, it shows that you went to Hawaii.
Yeah, we came back to Honolulu.
Is that the first time you were at Hawaii?
No, we stopped there going over.
Okay.
And then we stopped there coming back. And things I remember about Hawaii that time was that I got a haircut by a lady barber. First time in my life a woman ever cut my hair. And secondly, a couple of guys and I rented horses, and we went horseback riding up on Diamond Head and took a trail and looked down on some absolutely beautiful, gorgeous homes down there. That's my exposure to Honolulu.
Did you go into town?
No, don't think so. Well, had to get in town to get off the ship, but I don't remember spending much time in any downtown places. We had
Honolulu was pretty wild during World War II.
Horseback riding is the only thing I can think that I remember doing over there.
How did you, where were you at, and if you can recall?
Where was what?
Where were you at when you heard about the Japanese surrender, though?
Couldn't tell you.
Well, we always ask our World War II veterans, especially the ones in the Pacific, what are your feelings then about using the atomic bomb, and has your feelings changed since then?
No, I think the atomic bomb was necessary.
And that's usually the answer that we get,
Yeah.
you know.
I can't think of anything else,
Right.
and it worked. So, I guess, I don't know, were there people that said we shouldn't use it or something?
Well, we've always got people that say we shouldn't do a lot of things that we did, but we're always curious about the people who were actually there during World War II, what their opinions are, which means more to us. Is your arm bothering you badly?
Yeah, my shoulder. I got two bad shoulders.
I remember how you got that one.
Yeah.
And how you got it fixed, too.
I had this thing fall on me on this one. Down just off the front entrance down there. I was sitting on the concrete one day, and I moved a little bit too far and went off the concrete into the soft dirt. I went over, and I went down, and this thing fell and landed on this shoulder, so. I'm accident prone.
What rank did you retire, or were you when you got out of the Navy, Bill?
Now what?
What rank?
Motor machinist, made second class.
And what you recall what you were paid a month?
Yeah, I think we got 120 for CPay. I think it was 96 regular pay, and I think it was 120. I think it was 120 CPay.
Well, I'm curious about what happened with the fact that you had joined the Merchant Marines and then just left and went and joined the Navy. Did the Merchant Marines have anything to say about this?
No, I guess not. I said, I'm going home. Okay, goodbye. They had me for, I think this was just a money-making proposition for some people anyway. You gotta crank them through. Got a lot of them, crank them, continuous lines.
So they get paid for the number.
Yeah, I just didn't, at that time I wanted to get into action. Like, I guess I was an idiot. I really wanted to get into some action there, and I couldn't see sitting around a St. George hotel for a bunch of forever how long, waiting to get a job to go out and get in this damn thing. So, I don't know, I guess.
I think
Youth.
Yeah. I think we see you were discharged when in 1940.
Whenever.
What year were you discharged? I should have already looked at that.
I don't know, whenever.
1946?
Yeah.
February
46.
February of 1946 you were discharged from the Navy.
Yeah.
Did you come back to, where were you at when you were discharged?
I was discharged at Toledo.
And then you came back to Middletown?
Eventually I made I was interested in a young lady in Buffalo. So I went to Buffalo before I went home. And after spending several days with this young lady and her family, I decided this is not the young lady for me. So I went home.
Well, how in the world did you get hooked up with a lady in Buffalo and you're in the Pacific?
Well, this all happened in Boston.
Oh, okay.
When I was going back from leave one time to Boston, the train went through Buffalo and several young ladies got on. I got acquainted with one of these young ladies, and the ship was in Buffalo, I made frequent trips to Wellesley College in the evening. And we had corresponded after I left Boston and decided that at least I wanted to see what it was. I had an when I got discharged in Toledo, there was a Baltimore and Ohio guy that was looking for diesel mechanics, and I could have gotten at least an interview, if not a job, on the Baltimore and Ohio
Railroad.
because the same engine we used in the ship are the same that were used in the trains, and I chose not to. So anyway, I went on to Buffalo and spent some time with this young lady and her family and decided that this is not the young lady for me. So then I went home. And
What'd you do when you got home?
what did I wonder what did I would do when I got home?
Before I get there, though, I wanted to show a picture of you're discharged now and you're just coming home. And I wanted to show a picture here of the different medals that you were awarded for your service. And and your dog tags also. And I notice here your dog tags are round.
Round?
Yes.
Yeah, whatever.
And
why should they not be round?
well, some of them were
oblong.
Oblong, yes. Yeah. No, some of the dog tags we see are oblong, and yours are more of almost a circle there. Yeah. And I see you got battle stars also.
The what?
The extra battle stars for each campaign.
This is for Normandy and for southern France on the European bar, and for
the Pacific.
What's the name of that again?
Okinawa.
Okinawa on the Pacific bars there. Billy, you got where is that thing with the shows at the bars?
It's there.
Right here.
You got it on there?
I showed it right here. Yeah. I interrupted you there. So you came home.
And I didn't know what to do. And so, let's see, what did I got, I guess I didn't go back to Middletown. I started living with my mother and stepfather, who lived here in Cincinnati on Erie Avenue. And I started out selling commercial refrigeration, and working with my stepfather. And he Well, to go a little further, he was kind of an entrepreneur of sorts. And also he had grown up and was from Kentucky and had an interest in doing something in the oil business. So he knew of a parcel of land down in Kentucky that had oil possibilities, and began gathering signatures on leases and so forth. And well, also in the interim, I worked a little bit with my father and decided that I would rather be friends with him than work for him. So that was the end of that, not an association, but the end of work things. So my stepfather began to gather information about a certain tract of land in Kentucky. And I was also involved in this thing, trying to lay out map showing oil wells in the area previously. Well, anyway, without going through a whole lot of stuff there, finally got together the lease and also found some supporters that would like to get in the oil business.
What county was your lease going to be in?
In Powell County, Kentucky. Stanton.
I'm quite familiar with it.
Okay. Are you familiar with it?
Yes. Yes, I'm quite familiar with all those
Okay,
leases.
well, I lived in Beattyville for a while.
So did I. I was raised there.
Please?
I was raised there on a Hell Creek.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
Oh, for God's sake. Yeah, I spent a year or so, a couple years
In Beattyville?
in Beattyville. Anyway, we were successful in getting the backing and so forth, and for a while then, later on, I'm skipping over a little bit here. I was operating, I was chosen to run the lease. There's a kid that didn't know his ass from first base, being responsible for the operation of the lease. So anyway, I spent a year or so down there doing that. And it was fun, and I was, fortunately, I had an interest in the overall company and was able to get out.
Did you ever eat at the Purple Cow?
At the Purple Cow?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Is this, you're talking about Beattyville?
Uh-huh.
At the Beatty. I lived in the Ritz Hotel there for.
Did you know
years,
Did you know Clarence Becker?
Who?
Clarence Becker.
Becker.
Yeah.
I knew Price Fraley was a good friend of mine.
Yeah, he's a friend of ours too.
Okay, yeah, Price was a great guy. Yeah, and we lived when we first got married. I don't know whether you knew Bob Smallwood.
No.
Bob Smallwood's father owned the newspaper.
No, I didn't know.
Yeah,
him.
Bob's a younger fellow, my age, I guess. He and Jenny lived there in her house on the railroad, alongside the railroad track. And first, when Jonah and I got married, I took her down there, and we lived with Bob and Jen. We rented a room and lived down there for a while, and I was operating this, responsible for operating this lease for the White's Branch Oil Company. And fortunately, the White's Branch was successful, and we drilled a few wells, and one of my memorable experiences was the shooter I forget his name, would not, we would drive on the hill, I had wells on top of the hill and down below, and he wouldn't drive his truck down below because it was a nasty day, and I needed to have that damn well shot. So me, dummy, I get in his truck, and with a nice backload of nitroglycerin, and down the hill we went, and we made it safely. And I was glad, and I got my well shot that day. And I look back, and I, what a stupid ass I was.
Well, that's rough country.
I'm driving a goddamn truck with
You can't, that's rough country.
a backload of nitroglycerin. Anyway, the White Branch Oil Company was sold to one of the investors who later put the whole thing together and sold it off to somebody else.
Well, probably Ashland.
But Ashland, no, not to Ashland. Ashland was the buyer of the oil.
Yeah.
$2.43 a barrel, as I remember.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I was able to get out with some money to buy a house and whatever.
So what, did you come back to Cincinnati or what?
Yeah, we came back to Cincinnati. And look,
You mentioned you took your wife with you.
yeah, I took her down there.
Who you haven't told us about your wife yet.
Russ,
And her name?
her name was Joan Hinds, Hinds, and she was a legal secretary. And one night I was in, her sister was a singer, or liked to sing. And she was, I don't know whether you remember Grace Rains that used to have in one of the hills there, had she was a singing teacher. And Joan's sister was one of her pupils. And they have a yearly thing where the pupils get up and do their thing and so forth and so on. Well, they were having a practice one night over in Kentucky, over at the Ulacan Grotto, and Joan had on a date with another guy, and I had a date with one of her sister Alice's friends, and we all got together over at the bar. And I saw Joan. I had not met her, and I saw her, and I knew the guy she was with. And I went over and told her, I says, he's not the guy for you. You need somebody better than that than he. You need me. And sure enough, she did. Eventually, a short time later, a couple years later, we got married. And I'm running this lease down there. And so I had moved out of the Ritz Hotel and moved over in a room with Bob and Jen Smallwood. So I took this girl out of Monroe, Ohio. Her mother and sisters lived in Monroe, and her brother lived in Monroe. Took her out of Monroe, although she lived in Cincinnati, she and her sister, and took her down to Beattyville, Kentucky, to live in a one-room rented, and that was the beginnings of our married life.
When did you get married?
In 1960, was it 50? 1950. And being down there, this was summertime, and here's a young lady, a nice-looking young lady, in shorts and whatever, living in Beattyville, and across the street from where we lived was the courthouse in Beattyville with the low wall, and all the old-timers that didn't have anything to do
sat on
the wall. And they waited for my wife to go from the house over to the post office to see about any mail from home. they got their kicks that way.
Well, no women wore shorts down in Beattyville. There weren't too many women wearing shorts in 1950 in Beattyville.
Anyway, these old guys got their jollies. It was a little fun. We laughed at it. Anyway, that was.
There weren't too many cars in Beattyville either in 1950.
Anyway, we got out of there after a while and went back to Cincinnati, and I still didn't know what the hell that was. I got out of Beattyville, and I was out of a job, and I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do. So anyway, I got a job. Joan's sister's husband was a sales manager up at Aranca in Middletown. And they needed an opening in their sales department or administration, whatever they called it. And I applied for the job, and I got the job, so I went to work for Aranca. And I worked there for about 10 years. And one of the other companies that I had dealings with was CTL, Cincinnati Testing Lab. And the guy that owned the company, Elmer Warnken, was one of the two owners. And the other guy was Mel Corlitz. And they were doing a lot of work in aerospace, hot rocket nozzles and nose cones and whatever, high temperature materials and resins. And my work at Aranca involved also high temperature materials. And I got to know Elmer. I'd meet him in different places we were calling on and whatnot. And Elmer made a pass at me and wanted me to come to work with him. So I did. I made the change. It sounded like fun, and it was something different, and it was. However, unbeknownst to me, one of the reasons that I was hired was that I had to hire one of the guys that had been with the company for some little time. This, unbeknownst to me, I was not told this, but I found out later. I should have been told that this was one of the reasons. So anyway, I hired a longtime employee, and as a consequence, made an enemy of the guy who was the production manager. So we had, instead of having good working relations as sales and manufacturing, we had some problems. We got along all right, but it wasn't a guy that
You wanted to have lunch with.
Yeah, this guy resented it, and justifiably so. But anyway, I was with them for about 6 years, and and I decided I've had enough of this. I want to do something else. And during the course of the situation, I was, among other things, without a college degree and without an engineering degree. I was the chapter, Dayton chapter chairman of the Society for Aerospace Materials and Process Engineers. And one of the fellows in the group was also a manufacturer's rep. And when I found myself without a job, not to know what I was going to do, well, this fella, Harry Lake, said, "What are you going to do, Bill, now that you're out of a job?" And I said, "Hell, I don't know." And he said, "Well, why don't you come with me? I could use a sub-rep, and you might find it interesting." So I said, "Okay, fine." So I signed on with Harry as a sub-rep and worked with him a little bit. And during this course, I had an equation to get together with an engineer up at NCR, and became friends. And he said, Bill, he said, I think I know a guy that you might like to meet. This is a guy that has a little company up in Phillipsburg, and he makes printed circuit boards. And he said, you might like it. I think he needs some help in his sales. So I went up and talked to Dan, and he said, yeah, he said, like for me to help him out in sales. So I went to Harry, and I said, Harry, I got an opportunity to get K&S circuits. Would you want to bring it in? I'll be a partner like that. No, he said, I don't want anything to do with that kind of arrangement. So I said, okay, fine, I'll take it myself then. So we parted on good terms, he and I signed up with Dan Nisley up at K&S, and that was my first excursion as being a manufacturer's rep. And then I got a company out of Kansas City, Gasket Engineering, and several others after that. There was a company up in New Jersey that made valves, and I had been calling on Miles Labs up in Elkhart and knew a few of the people up there, and so the guy that owned the company up in New Jersey wanted and said that since you're in up at Miles, why don't you take a look and try to sell some our valves? So that's how I got on that. And not too long after that, in '75, well, Billy came with, that was '66. Billy came with me in '75, and we were in business together until I quit. So, yeah, I started a successful manufacturer's rep business, made a little money. We didn't make a lot of money. We made nice living, and that's it. And then Billy's got the business now. So that's the whole story from beginning to end.
How many children did you have, you and your wife?
Please?
How many children did you have?
There's
Just
my
one.
progeny over there.
And is William Jr.?
No, I'm junior.
Okay.
He's the third.
The third.
We
okay.
have the fourth and the fifth.
Ah.
We have 4 living Bill Watkins, ranging in age from 96 to 6. Got Billy, I'm junior, he's number 3. My grandson is number 4, and Will is number 5, he's 6 years old.
Well, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. We are pretty close to the end of our interview here, and I always like to make time for Brian, because he's always got some telling questions to ask.
Okay.
Well, I hope you can hear me. Am I talking loud enough?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was wondering, you talked about the engine room. Can you talk a little bit more about how the engine room ran, how many people worked in there, shifts, that sort of thing?
How the what?
And maybe you could use the boat photo, too.
Yeah. He wants to know how the engine room ran. And
How the engine room ran?
Yes.
How many people
Smoothly, of course.
How many people worked in there?
Why else would it be but smoothly? Let's see, what did we have on a shift? 1, 2, 3. I think there were 3 or 4, maybe 4 of us in the engine room. I forget. We were responsible for the main engines, and we had 3 auxiliary engines They were GDB-8s to provide the power, and two of them running at all times, and the third alternate. Then we would have to change engines from time to the auxiliary engines from time to time during the watch.
So how long would a shift be for you? 8-hour shifts?
Yeah, 8-hour shift, yeah. 8 on, 4 off, or 4 on, 8 off. It depended on the situation, whether we were just calmly at sea going through or was easy. We didn't need that many people. But during the beaching operation, it's a little bit more because we got our instructions from up above on the telemeter, thing, what they call it, I forget.
Diagram
Yeah. Would you like Bill to explain this?
there. Yeah.
Can you explain this to us?
What is it? I can't read it.
This is a condenser, and the high pressure side, 125 pound.
Oh, that's for a steam engine.
Oh, okay. You're operating a diesel.
Yeah, we were operating diesel. The steam engines I got into when I got into the Merchant Marines.
Oh, okay.
No.
But the
Well, have them talk about the ship a little bit.
Yeah. Do you recall, tell us about this ship really, an LST.
well, it's about 300, as I recall, about 328 feet bow to stern, and about 60 feet in the beam. In other words, across the top. And we probably, flank speed would probably be like 10 miles an hour, 12 miles an hour. It was slow, a large, slow target. And draft, we would, I think, only draft about 6 feet in the bow and about 12 feet in the stern. So it's just like a cork sitting on top of the water. And on D-Day, with the battleships and the cruisers and the big ships with their guns firing in the big stuff, caused enough repercussion that our ship would kind of bobble. When the big guns would go off, there was enough repercussion or pressure or whatever pressure, I guess it was, pressure change, that we kind of bobble a little bit. And at any time, if the seas were heavy at all, we were up and down, up and down. And I did mention the typhoon, I think, did I?
Yeah. Not in great detail. Yeah.
Well, there wasn't much detail except we had the bow anchor and the stern anchor out and ran flank speed for at least 24 hours, and it probably was more, just in order to keep headed into the wind. And the flank speed wouldn't take us any place, it just kept us headed into the wind. If we had deviated from that even a little bit, we'd have upside down we go. We'd had a upside down cake.
Your son Bill was saying that the water was actually over your ship during the typhoon.
Yeah. The water was coming over the ship. Yes, that's blowing. I was in the engine room. I couldn't see it, but it was hell above, I'm sure, and frightening above, as it was in where we were down in the engine room. It was.
You didn't lose any men during the typhoon,
We didn't.
did you?
No, fortunately, we didn't lose any men, and it was no damage, I guess, to the ship at all. But it was absolutely frightening.
I was curious, how did they unload tanks and things like that using photos?
Brian was asking, how did you unload the tanks and
what?
how you unloaded the tanks and the trucks?
Through the bow doors, opened the bow doors, dropped the ramp.
They opened this way?
Yeah, the bow doors opened this way and dropped the ramp. And when we had the prisoners on board, one of the cables broke. And as a consequence, it couldn't pull the ramp up and close the bow doors. So I, and as well as I think there were about 4 of us all together, got down in the water and rethreaded that cable so that the bow doors could be pulled up. That was done successfully. And when we got out of the water, of course it was cold as hell, cold in the water, the German prisoners offered us their coats because they knew that we were cold from being in the water. Mm-hmm. There was no problem insofar as rushing us or doing anything untoward. They were just damn glad to be out of the firing, and thought initially that they were going to the United States. But they did find out quickly that they weren't going to the United States, they were going to England. And this, they were thankful for going to England to get the hell out of the fray over there.
But there was still a lot of bitterness from the British people towards the Germans.
Well, I'm sure there were, yes.
And,
but
yeah.
nevertheless, yes, they had a right to be, I guess. Yeah.
What other questions about the...
How far in advance were you told about D-Day or the operation?
How far what?
Did you know about D-Day in advance?
V-Day?
D-Day, did you know about it in advance of it happening?
V-Day?
D-Day.
D-Day?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, we knew it was coming. We didn't know exactly when. And one of the sad parts about it was that shortly before that, and I might have mentioned this, shortly before that, there were several LSTs out at night doing some practice stuff, and the E-boats, German E-boats, got in and got if I remember, sank 2 LSTs in. And they said, "Hey guys, we're not ready yet. We're just practicing, for God's sake." No.
Has there been anything written about that, a book or anything that you know of?
No, I don't think. It was not publicized even to some of the people in the service. We found out about it, but there were others that were not told, and those who were aware of it were warned not to say a damn thing about it, or else.
Right.
Do you know if there were many people lost with those 2 sinkings?
Were many people killed during the...
Yeah, they lost. Yeah, we lost a few people. Lost 2 LSTs and some personnel. Yep.
Any idea with the LST how the casualty, like how many times they were sunk during the war? Has anybody kept tabs on that?
I don't know. I don't recall that.
Do what?
He was curious at how many LSTs were sunk during World War II.
Oh gosh, I don't know. I have no idea.
I was wondering.
I'm sure there are records.
I was just curious about, you were saying it's a slow-moving target, whether that could have been a target, and how much, how aware you were of that happening to you as a possibility, in the training or something.
I don't know. Personally, I would have no idea. Probably Dickie could tell you.
Yeah.
So when you were in the fleet of all the ships, you said there were battleships. Do you remember the makeup of the fleets?
Oh, you
Different
mean
type ships on D-Day?
going over to D-Day?
Yeah.
Again, didn't see it. I didn't see it, but I'm sure there were battleships and cruisers and
How many LSTs?
destroyers.
Destroyers.
And I don't know how many. I don't know, Billy. And there was a destroyer. I think it was a destroyer. The smaller craft was really the turning point. The turning point on D-Day at Omaha Beach, when the captain of this smaller craft, and I forget what it was a destroyer or smaller, it had to be, came up and broadside shot the people up on the hill, and came in and made it, well, I don't know how to describe it to you. Came in and went broadside perpendicular to the beach, and fired the guns on that ship to the armaments up above, and was successful in fortunately doing a lot of damage, which enabled the guys on the ground trying to get up the hill, they were able to do so. This guy had to get in, shoot, and get the hell away before they could target in on him. And that was a real gutsy move to make, and fortunately was one of the real turning points in that whole situation at Omaha Beach.
Mm-hmm.
And
I've heard of that, but it escapes me what the name of that ship was.
I don't know. I forget the size of the ship.
Bill, if you would bring over, you can hand those to us if you would, please. I'd like to show, Bill, this shows your rank while you were in the Navy when you were discharged.
Yeah.
And this, what does this signify?
It's motor machinist second class. Motor machinist made second class.
Motors?
MOMM.
Motors machinist second class.
Yeah. Second class. Two-striper.
And these were given to you when you got an honorable discharge, weren't they? Did some people call these a ruptured duck?
Ruptured duck, yeah.
And you're supposed to sew these on your uniform, weren't you?
I don't know.
That way you got to wear your uniform home, even though you were discharged.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
You kept these in...
I've forgotten about the ruptured duck.
Yeah, in excellent shape.
I had the...
Brian, do you have any other questions? Do you have anything else you want to share with us today, Mr. Watkins?
Oh, no, I'm proud to have had the opportunity to serve the my country, and I'm thankful was able to get through the situations unscathed, and frankly, our ship and personnel came through it without a scar, I guess you'd call it. We were very, very fortunate. The exposure that we had to enemy fire and kamikaze and stuff like that, we were able to survive. Some of them didn't. And I'm sorry that we lost so many good young people.
Well, at this point, I'd like to shake your hand, and from the bottom of my heart, I thank you for your service to our country, and I thank you for this interview.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
well,
sir.
thank you for the interview, and I'm happy to be of service to my country, and if they need me again, oh, hell, I'm ready to go. I don't know what I'd do, but I'd have to have somebody help me.